Welcome to this week's edition of Black Authors Matter TV, where we interview the latest movers and shakers in the African American literary community. You'll meet some old friends, discover new ones, and stay abreast of the latest book developments around the country and even the world. So sit back and relax for the next 2 hours with Black Authors Matter TV co-hosts Gwen Richardson and Dr. Rhonda Lawson.
Well, hello. It is August 23rd, and welcome back to another great episode of Black Authors Matter TV. I'm Gwen Richardson, your host for tonight, along with my co-host,
Dr. Rhonda Lawson. Good evening, everybody.
And we again have an amazing lineup as we do every week. Before we get started with the lineup and our guests, we are going to just make a couple of announcements. We do have the book club kickback September 13th. We're going to be discussing this book by Brandon Massey called The Exodus. So if you're in a book club and want to participate or just want to watch it and join in the discussion, feel free. You have about a month to read the book. Next, we announced our finalists for the Jerry Pinckney Children's Book Awards last week. And I want to give a shout out. Congratulations again to all the finalists, as well as everybody who submitted a book for the process. All the books are being donated to a local library in the African American neighborhood. And so your books will be able to bless children in the Houston area. So we have 3 books to give away tonight. And then we're going to, well, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and bring on our first guest, and I'm going to give away the books after this, because our first guest is already in the waiting room, and we want to go ahead and get started with her. Her name is Megan Giddings, and she is an award-winning novelist. She has a new book that just came out a couple of weeks ago called The Women Could Fly, and this is actually her second book, I believe, because her debut novel made a big splash. It was called Lakewood. So, and it was the NPR Book of the Year. So we want to welcome Megan Giddings to Black Authors Matter TV.
Welcome, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here.
You're welcome. Now, your new book just came out, The Women Could Fly. And, oh, you have a copy of it. Wonderful. And it is, it says it's about a dystopian society, but like what genre is it categorized in?
So it's technically
normally like fitted into a category.
It's categorized as literary fiction, but
Okay.
it has a lot of different genres in it, where I've seen people call it dystopian. I've seen people classify it as fantasy. It's just one of those books where there's a lot of different elements in it. So I think some of the hard part is people figuring out where to shelve it in a bookstore, but some of the fun for readers is arguing, okay, what is this?
Right. Well, there's so much to unpack with the story. Can you first talk to us about the storyline, and then I would love to know how you came up with this idea.
Yeah, so this book takes place in a world that's a lot like ours in some ways, except for if you are a woman, by the time you're 30, you have to make a choice. You either get married or you register with the government as a witch. And if you register with the government as a witch, you have to give up all of your money. You have to let go of your job. You have to live in a special part of town that's monitored for witchcraft. And the government essentially takes responsibility for you because you're a witch. And if you're a woman, well, your husband's taking responsibility to make sure that you're never tempted by evil or doing anything magical. And the main character, Jo, is 28 and has to do her first round of registering because she's unmarried. And she's also still dealing with the loss of her mother, who disappeared at 14. And her mother really was critical of the way the world was around her and wanted Jo to be the same way. And now Jo is still trying to figure out, am I going to be like my mom, or am I going to try to find my own way to be happy? And that's what leads you into the book.
Wow.
And yeah, and I mean,
now what made you make the unmarried women witches? Like,
I think that's
what-
how they always, it's kind of a reflection how society sometimes treats unmarried women, where if
Right.
you don't conform, if you're not interested in getting married,
Something
you-
must be wrong with you. You must be up to
Yeah.
something. Yes.
yeah,
I see exactly where you're going. And it's unfortunate that, and I hate to say it, but a lot of married women treat single women like that now. Like, why isn't she married? I don't want her around my husband. I don't trust her, or what's really wrong with her? I mean, and then I hate to bring him up, but even Kevin Samuel said that if a woman is at 35 years old and she's not married, then something must be wrong with her. So even in this day and age, we're still treating single women this way.
yeah, and that's exactly it. And it was also kind of that I found it funny just because I'm from like the Midwest, and people are constantly like, about the time you hit 25, if you're not married, they're like, well, what's going on here? Why aren't you
Right.
married? Why aren't you in a serious relationship? And it's like, I'm 25. I mean, I'm not 25, but the time I was like, but the
Right.
time I was like, yeah.
I guess because I've been married twice. So first time I got married, I was 25.
Mhm.
And so I hope I don't think I treat single women any different kind of way, because everybody has to make their own choices. And if you don't meet someone you want to marry, it's better to be single.
I agree.
Yeah,
I
me
actually
too.
had a married woman tell me this, that she doesn't have single friends because she doesn't like single women being around her husband, and then there are some husbands who don't want their wives to be with single women because they feel like these single women are
Mhm.
going to lead them astray and have them doing all sorts of things. And so,
well, that's a lack of trust on
Yeah.
both sides.
Yeah. But I
You
also
know,
think sometimes people just get married too quickly too, where they feel like it's the
Mhm.
thing they have to do.
peer
And
pressure.
yeah, there's a difference between being in love and being married.
Yeah,
Right.
that's true.
Absolutely.
That's true.
Absolutely.
And some people do get married because their friends are all getting married. I've
Mhm.
heard of that. Or they just feel like it's time, and
Mhm.
whoever happens to be around
Yep.
when they feel like it's time, that's who. Those aren't good reasons to get married, because you're going to marriages, just like any relationship, is going to have challenges. But one of the differences between, being dating and being married is when you're married and you have challenges, unless your decision is to not be married forever.
Mhm.
If you go into it with the death do us part psychology, then you're going through the challenges together. And it's all kinds of challenges, some of which you have no control over. I mean, deaths in the family is one of them. The death
Mhm.
of someone close in the family on both sides.
Mhm.
That's one of the crucibles that you go through when you're mad. Or, a person losing their job, they may be unemployed for a while. You both might have financial problems. It's no fault of your own. It's just, when having children, that brings a different set of challenges. And you really, the main thing is you have to be on one accord, whatever it is. If you're not on one accord, that's where the friction is. That's where this comes in.
That's true.
Well, Megan, as you were talking about your story, I thought about the Salem witch trials, because those women went through the same thing. They had to register as witches or else they lost their property, they lost all of their money. And I was wondering if that storyline was in your mind when you came up with your story.
Yeah, I did a lot of research on witches and how people got accused of witchcraft. And also, I was thinking in some ways about how anything that didn't feel right, especially done by Black people, but also other people of color who brought their religions or faith
Mhm.
to the United States, they were they were treated like they were supernatural or witches and not like they were practicing their faith or their culture. And I feel like that's just an element of our country's heritage.
Well, we had a guest on 2 or 3 weeks ago that mentioned that the lady who was from Italy, and she said she was from like a small community in Italy where they were considered to be witches. Do you remember that, Rhonda? It
Yeah.
was the lady that had the
Huh.
Roots and Racism book. So
Yeah.
it could be, global. It may not necessarily just be in the United States.
Yeah.
Now, I have a question. What is a witch exactly? What is it? Is it a witch someone who has special powers? Can a witch be good or evil? Like, the wicked witch of the West or the good witch what is a witch?
A witch is a person with special powers, and it's up to you to decide whether or not they're good or bad. It's up to them
Okay.
too to decide if they're good or bad.
There you
Okay.
go.
Okay. All right. So tell us more about the story in terms of do you focus more on the women who are controlled by the government because they have to register as witches, or does the book focus more on the women who get married by 30, or does it kind of weave both storylines together?
I would say it's focusing more on like the choice that you make. So it weaves both storylines in a little bit. And there are examples of both kinds of women in the book, but you follow the main character's decision about what to do throughout most of the novel.
Right.
Okay.
I can see where it's probably a no-win situation for all of the women involved. I mean, either you're in a loveless marriage or you're basically penniless, but you're living, I guess, free to the extent that someone could live free that way.
Yeah, and there's also the complication of being someone who knows it's unfair,
Right.
but still falls in love and gets married, but how they might also feel about it, where they know it's not a fair system for other women, but they're in love and they want to get married. They want to have that expression of, I want to be with this person forever. We're meant to be together. And characters like that show up too. So I wanted to show how complicated it is when you know something is wrong, but it also has benefits or could be good for you.
Absolutely.
So what did you get your writing bug from? Were you always interested in the fantasy realm, or what kinds of writing did you do before you started writing books?
Before I started writing books, like when I was a teenager and through most of college, I wanted to be a poet. I wrote a lot of poetry. It was not good poetry, but you know how it is when you're a teenager and a young adult. You've got so many feelings and they've got to come out
Who
somewhere.
decides if it's good poetry or not?
Me,
I
decide.
You looked at it later and was like, what in the world did I write?
What was I thinking? Where was my head?
Yeah, just like that.
Well,
Yeah.
I've got to say that this is, I believe, your second book, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And you've actually achieved what a lot of authors want, NPR Book of the Year, Essence Magazine. So were you surprised when your books attracted this type of attention, or is this something that you did intentionally to get this attention?
I was really surprised that my books attracted this attention, or even this new book is getting a lot of really good reviews. And I'm kind of surprised because I think the books I'm writing are pretty weird. They mix all those genres. I'm not writing about the world we live in. And I write for me. I write because I think it's fun. And I like thinking about the world and trying to find a way to talk about it. It's nice to get recognition, but I always have to kind of forget about it to write, because if you try to be creative or make something and you're thinking all about trying to get awards, you can't really have fun or write something beautiful.
And I think you're right. I think people who try to write for the purpose of getting these accolades often maybe miss the mark because they're not writing from their heart. They're trying to write what they think is popular, what they think people want. And
Yeah.
sometimes that's not always the case.
Yeah. And two, if somebody's already won awards for certain things, that means that that lane is already taken for a while, because the next time they'll be looking for something different, not the same exact thing. So if people try to copy what somebody else is doing, that never works. I mean, your ideas have to be original. Now, we did have someone ask, Michelle Goins said, can we mention the title of the book again? Because she missed the opening introduction. So Megan, can you show your book cover again? And it's called The Women Could Fly. It's a novel, and it's a dystopian society. Now, it's the society. Oh, is it from the past, the present, or the future? Or
it's from the present, and then it also weaves in folktales. So I read like the title comes from I read the folktale collection The People Could Fly, which is American folktales.
Okay. That's when I heard the name of your book, I'm like, that book sounds so familiar. And that's the reason why.
Yeah. And I wanted to think a lot about how to write folktales that center Black women, and those are woven throughout. So you've got both the story of Joe, and then I wrote different folktales throughout the book.
Oh, so this is kind of almost a collection of folktales?
Not really, because I have them all coming from her mother, like their memories, and her mother's telling her these folktales.
Okay.
But it was,
that's the way
it's part of it. Yeah.
Okay. Now tell us a little bit about your first book, which is the one that was the NPR Book of the Year, Lakewood. And I saw on the cover of your book, it says, I think it said author of Lakewood on the front. So it refers to your first book on there. So now, was that a similar genre, or was it completely different? Tell us
it's
about
completely different. So I would say it's closer to horror in some ways, but it's another book that was classified, like I sold it as literary fiction, but some people say it's horror, some people call it science fiction, some people said it's just weird, because that's how people are. But it's about a girl, Lena, and you find out on the first page of Lakewood that her grandmother has just died, and her mom has chronic illnesses that doctors can't figure out what's going on. And Lena is a college student, and she's become head of the family, and she needs to pay off the debt from her grandmother's illness and for the funeral, and also take care of her mom. And it's really hard for a college student to get a job, and she gets offered to join a mysterious research experiment in a town called Lakewood that will take care of all of their money, but mysterious things happen, and that's why you should read the book.
Oh, now that sounds intriguing. I don't really read horror, just because I think it might scare me, like give me nightmares.
That's legit. You don't have to read it if you're going to be scared.
I was just going to ask, I know you said some people categorize it as horror, but did you set out for this to be a horror story?
No, I think I just went a little too dark when I wrote it.
So you didn't have everything about the storyline figured out in the beginning, because
I never do that.
Some people do. Some people like do a whole outline of every arc of the book.
I admire those people.
Me too, because I don't do that. I kind of know in a limited way about where I wanted to go, sort of. That's really, but I really get led once I'm writing, and the characters kind of take over, and that's how it flows for me when I write fiction, which I don't do a lot of fiction, but
that's what I do too. I mean, I call it making a mess, and then I have to sort everything and organize it in the next couple of drafts. But
that's how it is sometimes. I mean, sometimes the ideas don't come to you in order of the book. You just kind of have to go with the flow and then put it together when you've gotten it all out there. So
that's exactly it.
Kind of your organized mess.
Yeah.
So are you a night writer or a morning writer?
I write whenever I can. So I work a day job as a professor, and a lot of the semesters I've had 100 students, and it's just really hard to write and grade and teach. And especially because during the pandemic, when they were all like remote learning as well, it was just a lot to
Right.
balance. So I have to schedule time. Sometimes it's night, sometimes it's morning, sometimes it's just an hour at lunch during the school year.
So
Yes,
what do you
that
teach?
lunchtime writing is great.
Yeah. I
So
teach
what's
creative writing in English.
Oh, it's okay. So
Oh,
you,
so it all goes
yeah,
together.
it all goes
Yeah.
together. So in your teaching, when you like, how long have you been a professor?
I've been a professor. Is it like the professor? It's 3 years. And then before that, I was adjuncting. So I was technically an instructor, but I was still doing professor work, but for much less
You
money.
didn't have you
Right.
didn't have the title.
Yeah.
So when you are teaching your students and you're teaching creative writing, so it's right in the same bailiwick, the same wheelhouse.
Yeah.
How do they what do you see? What kinds of writing do you see in your students? Like what are young people writing about? People who are just out of high school and early.
Yeah.
What kinds of things do they write about?
It's a real mix. Some are writing, a lot of them love fantasy novels right now. So a lot of them are writing fantasy. Some are writing about going to frat parties. Some are writing about high school.
Okay. Yeah, I've noticed the fantasy genre has really taken off among Black writers and
And
Black
especially fantasy love stories. I've seen that a lot lately.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I
it's just
think
like
that's a nice twist because I think I always felt like people were getting a little tired of just regular romance stories, but when you can add that fantasy element to it, it just gives it a bit more adventure. So I like that. And I
I like
actually
that
see that
too.
with your books as well. I mean, I know you said that you don't really categorize it the way a lot of other people categorize it, but I can see somebody who may be really into fantasy gravitating to either one of those books.
I hope so. I mean, I don't really think that much about genre. I care a lot more about just writing books that people want to read and spend time with, because
Right.
it's like one of the nicest things you can do is have something that you made and people actually want to devote hours of their life with it.
Right. And it sounds like your books are also character driven. So it gives your readers somebody to care about.
Yeah, and that's probably the most important thing for me of all, is if you care about these main characters. And especially because both books, my main characters are young Black women who we still don't get to be the main characters of books that often. And if we are, it's usually miserable for us.
Right.
And I wanted to write, I mean, not that Lakewood is a fun book, but especially with The Woman Could Fly, I wanted a book that you don't worry too much about the main character, but you want to see what she does. You want to spend time with her.
Right.
A lot of times when we write books or topics or storylines that we'd like to see that we don't see enough of.
Yeah.
And and that's one real benefit to the explosion in self-publishing that's happened over the last, I'll say 15 years, is that you can get more different types of stories. Sometimes, I know you with HarperCollins, but sometimes the big publishers tend to, they have some boxes that they create, and some books that don't go in one of the boxes, they don't sign. But now, did you get your Lakewood book? Was that your first time writing a novel?
It was my first time writing a novel.
And did you get signed before the book was finished, or did you have a
No, I had to finish the book. where
Okay.
I did finish the whole draft, and then Amistad won it. And I'm lucky enough to be at Amistad, which is the biggest Black publisher
Yes.
in
Mhm.
the country. So
Mhm.
I think it's also why I get to write books that are a little off or weird or don't fit neatly into boxes, because I'm at the Black publishing house. They want to support me. They want new stories. And they've been really great to me.
Hmm.
That's great.
So
Now
have you
it's
done? Oh,
um
go ahead. Go ahead, Brenda.
okay. Now I was just going to ask, did you go the traditional route, as in, you wrote your book, then you found an agent and your agent shopped your book, or did you know exactly where you wanted to go with your book?
It was the traditional route, and especially because it is so hard still to sell books,
Mhm.
and especially to sell books as a Black woman. Like, our hope was I would be at somewhere like Amistad, where I could have a Black editor, or at least an editor who's a person of color. But we knew that we were going to have to shop to a lot of places just to feel confident and good about the whole situation.
It happens.
So when you got signed, did you get signed for a 2-book deal?
I did not. So they signed me for
Oh.
one, and then, like the standard contract, they get to look at what I'm working on next when
Right.
I
Okay.
feel ready for it. And
And then
they
that
liked
first
it.
book blew up, and so they said, okay, I think we're going to keep her around.
Yeah, that was the vibe.
So now that your second book is just released, but it's already doing well. Are you already considering your third book?
I am. I mean, I always start writing the next, because you never know what's going to happen. So you
Right.
finish the book and you start the next one, and it helps to not worry if you have something else that's creative and fun to do.
Right. Well, at least you do get to stay in for your job. You're doing something that is in the field that you are working on with your books. You get to teach creative writing and read creative stories by the next generation of writers and give them encouragement too. So we're at the
Yeah.
end of our time. So we wanted to show the book cover again for people who signed on later. The Women Could Fly by Megan Giddings. And it looks like it's a hardcover. Is that
It
right?
is.
It's a hardcover.
Awesome.
Good for you.
And we
So-
did put the website in the chat. So people who are interested in the book, you can just click right on that chat and it'll take you, or excuse me, right on that link, and it will take you directly to the book. So let's go ahead and support this young author.
Thanks for having me. This was really fun.
Well,
Oh,
thank
no, thank you
you.
for being here.
Yeah, thanks for letting us know all about your work. And I'm gonna check out. I think I'm gonna try Lakewood first.
Okay, but don't blame me if you get scared, okay? All right, bye,
I
y'all.
keep it in mind. If I feel like it's too scary, I might have to just take it in small doses. So
Well, congratulations on what's already been a successful literary career.
Thank you. Bye,
Thank you.
everybody.
okay. All right. You have a great evening.
You too.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, well, we have 3 books to give away. We're going to do that before we do our next interview with Edwin Brown, who is a comic book writer and artist. So our 3 books that we're giving away, we gave this one away last week, The 2 Lives of Sarah, but they sent us 3 of these. So this is the second one we're going to give away. And we're not going to be asking the same trivia question that we asked last week. So in case you were wondering about that. So here's the question for this book. It is, the author is Catherine Adele West, The 2 Lives of Sarah, and name the boarding house that's central to the story. There's a name of a boarding house and it's central to the story. What is the name of it? And you can win this book. Next, we have On the Rooftop. This one's by Margaret Wilkerson Sexton. And the trivia question for this one is, there are 3 sisters in the book and they form a singing group. What is the name of the singing group? And the book is called On the Rooftop. And finally, we have this book. Oh, and I did want to say Catherine Adele West, she'll be on the show in September. Next, we have this book is called The Illustrated Black History. And this particular author is an illustrator. He did illustrations of different people in the book. And then he did a write-up. So it looks like pencil, the pencil sketching that he did. There's a whole book of it. This comes out in October. And it's pretty. It looks like it could be a coffee table book, but I'm not sure if it will be, but it looks like it could be. And it's almost 400 pages. So he'll be on in October. The author's name is George McCalvin. But name one of the people featured in the book through an illustration. So in the synopsis, he lists several names of people. So all you have to do is name one of the people to get to win a copy of the book. Okay, before we bring on our guest for this next segment, did anyone win a book yet? And if not,
wait, I think we have an answer.
Okay, we may have a winner of the book.
Sherry Carthane, and I have to see which one did she answer. Okay, she answered the first one, The Scarlet Poplar.
Okay, that's correct. Sherry Carthane.
So is she a new winner? Has she won before?
She is a new winner. She's never won. She recently started watching the show. Sherry is my good friend and choir friend, my choir buddy.
Okay.
So she started watching the show early in the year, and she's been watching it almost every week. Okay, so do we have any other winners? If not, we're going to bring on Edwin.
Mary Evans. She won a book.
Oh, she did. Because James Baldwin is a correct answer.
Yep.
So, Mary, you get, this is a nice book for you to get. Okay, and no one won this one yet.
Gwendolyn Hayes, another regular winner.
Okay.
She said the singing group is the Salvations.
It is. Okay, so all three books will go out this week. That was quick.
Yay!
Okay, so our next guest is Edwin Brown, and he is a comic book writer and an artist, and he writes intriguing superhero stories, and he does all kinds of different forms of art, landscaping. He says he likes to compose music, and he likes athletics. So he likes a lot of stuff.
He's a man of many talents. He's a Renaissance man.
But he's going to talk to us, I believe, about his new book. And the title of it is 0 Hour Epsilon Force Number 1. So he's going to have to tell us what this book is about. And we welcome you to Black Authors Matter TV.
Hey, Gwen. Hey, Rhonda. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you very well.
Loud and clear. Loud and clear.
Cool.
So do you have a copy of your book with you?
Yeah, that's right. I don't know if you can see it.
Sure.
Yes, we can.
We can see it. So it's 0 Hour. So this is a true comic book.
Yeah, true comic book. Like
Okay.
to get out of the store. So
Okay, and it's a superhero driven.
yeah, it's got. I kind of have a little problem trying to classify because it's mostly superhero, but it's got a little bit of everything in it, like Black history and Christianity. So kind of.
So a little of everything in it.
Yeah, I tried to merge all that together. So.
Okay,
what your comics have a storyline per se?
Yeah, they do.
Okay, so tell us about your main characters.
So main character, I'll start with the main character. He's a reptile, and he lives in a fantasy type mythical universe. And basically, at least in this first book, he has a really difficult time accepting humans in general. He does not like humans at all. Because when he was younger, his mother was killed by a hunter. So he doesn't like humans at all. And that's kind of one of the driving points of the story. And the other main character who appears a little bit later, he's a black man. And he basically helps the alligator overcome his hatred for humans because he comes from a time like during like the Tulsa massacre and times where those like segregation and lynchings and all those existed. So he came from that time frame, and so he had a problem accepting white people after they killed his family as well in the massacre. And so basically, he uses his experience to kind of help him overcome his hate. Help the alligator overcome his hatred for humans in the end. And basically, they become friends, and then it ends kind of on a cliffhanger with when the next villain appears. But
so kind of like an unlikely friendship forged out of having a similar experience.
Right.
Gotcha.
He helps him defeat the villain of that story arc. So yeah.
Oh, well, so what made you get into comic book writing? Is it like something you did as a kid and kept it going, or?
Yeah, so I actually grew up. I loved watching a lot of superheroes and science fiction. So like Sonic the Hedgehog, Star Wars, Ninja Turtles, all that combined. I loved watching all of that, and so I wanted to create my own superhero and my own comic series. And so when I did that, I started writing the scripts for it when I was in college, kind of on and off. So I kind of already knew where I wanted the story to go. And then when I was talking to like a couple of my friends, and then like, during the events with like George Floyd and everything, I was talking to them and they kind of helped me come up with the idea of maybe including like some Black history or something in there to kind of give it a little bit more purpose. And so, and then I came up with the idea I could kind of like merge that into what I had already written. And that's kind of how it came together.
So how long have you been doing this with the comics?
The comics, I started that, I think it was 2015. I was just writing scripts on and off between, whenever I wasn't slaving away.
Okay, so you've been at this for a while then.
A little bit, yeah, a little bit.
But don't sound so excited about it.
Been kind of on and off, so yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
So is this your first book release as far as a comic book? Is it your first one?
Yes,
that
the
you
comic book.
actually finished
Yeah.
and released it? Now, what is the process for doing a comic book? I'm not familiar with how it's done in terms of just do you sketch the whole thing out first and then color it? I don't know because I'm not an artist. So I'm just asking just for lay people who want to know about comic books. And do you do you do storyboards, or what do you do with your stories, and how do you bring it all together?
So for me personally, and this probably isn't like the right way to do it, but for me personally, what I do is I wrote the scripts out. So I already kind of know where I want the story to go in general. But when I'm sketching it out, sometimes things might change if I want to like change a little dialogue here and there. So when I'm sketching it out, I'll sketch out kind of how I want it to go, and get everything, if I have any ideas that I change my mind in the middle of it, I'll incorporate that while I'm sketching it out. And then once I get it all, like the sketches completed, then I'll run back over them with I guess I do it digitally, so in this case, but like it would be like inking it. And
Okay.
And then after that, I put the colors and the shadows, and then the speech bubbles go last. And that's kind of my process of doing it. So
Yeah, wait, I heard you say that it's probably not the right way to do it. I think everybody has a certain way that they approach a project, and that just happens to be your way. It doesn't mean it's the wrong way or the right way. It's your way of doing it.
Right. The objective is to have a complete project at the end that's that you're satisfied with, and that is commercial, that can, commercially viable in terms of selling it. Unless, you're doing it for yourself, like to have it on the shelf. And most people don't do it for that purpose. They want it to have some commercial success. So let's look at your cover again. I like to see, because we looked at it kind of quickly. And so where's the reptile? Oh, I see him. Is it like a dragon?
Yeah, he's part alligator, part dinosaur, part dragon. So he's got a little bit of all three.
Oh, okay, okay. And then the man beneath him is the black man there.
Yeah.
Okay, that befriends him, and then they find out they have something in common. And then what are the other creatures swirling around? What role do they play? Not individually necessarily, but just like what do they do?
So they're all like kind of minor characters in this story arc. So one of the part of the story is he gets drafted to the military. The alligator gets drafted to the military. So that's his commanding officer right there in the corner. He kind of plays a minor role.
Okay,
That's someone from a flashback that played a role as well. As
okay.
well as the guy in red, another flashback that plays a role. Then that guy right there I don't know if you can see it, but he's the main villain of this story arc.
Okay, he looks like he has a sword or something.
Yeah, so
Okay.
so then everybody else is kind of, minor characters. And then that's the cliffhanger ends on this. That's the villain of the next story arc that I'm writing about. So
Okay,
Oh,
so
okay.
this is number one, and you're currently working on number two.
right. Yes.
Okay. So
So
how
it's
long
like
does
a
it,
series, like,
right?
That's what I want it to be. Yes.
okay, okay.
How long does it take you to start from beginning to end? Does it just kind of depend on where you want your story to go?
Yeah, it varies. It started out as a web comic, and I did those pretty quickly, but and I was just doing those as a way to just kind of get my art together. So that way, whenever I wanted to release like a real one, I kind of have everything put together. So the real one, I can't remember exactly. I think it took me about 6 to 8 months to do that completely, and so I guess that kind of be the timeline, depending on what else I got going on at the same time. But,
Right. Well, there aren't a lot of people of color in the comic book industry. Have you been able to network with other comic book artists?
I've met one person does come to mind, Evan Narcisse. So he's one of the writers. He wrote Black Panther, and he worked for like a lot of other Marvel characters. And so I met him at a book signing that I was doing, and so he was going to be there. And the owners of Black Pearl Books, it's a store here in Austin. So Eric and Katrina, they're the owners. They let me do a book signing of my book right next to him, and so
That's great.
that's where I met him, and he gave me some pointers, and I gave him a copy of mine too. So
So when did this one come out? This comic book, the first,
March, this past
March.
March.
Okay, March. Okay, I see what he said, March 1st. Okay, so you've been doing this for about 6 months or so.
Yes.
So how's it going?
It's going, kind of. Some days I get more done than others, so just kind of.
Well, I think that's how it always is. Some days you get more done than others, and sometimes you just need to rest. But I think for the most part, you're getting out there. Have you been able to? What do you do with your comic? Do you get it into libraries, schools? Are you doing? I know I heard you say you did a book signing. Are you doing those? What are you doing to get the book out there?
So right now I just reach out to people, see if they want to take like, I guess, bulk sales of it, and then I try and get it into stores as well.
What's the is there like an age group that is targeting? Are you targeting like, is it for kids? Is it for adults?
I target it for 12 and up.
12 and up. Okay. Okay. Yeah, because I'm thinking comic books are mostly for kids, but I know some adults that really like them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I believe you are coming to the National Black Book Festival in October. Is that correct?
Yes, I was on the waiting list, and then I got it.
There you go.
Okay, well, that's great. So you will meet tons of people. You'll make great contacts. You'll sell a lot of your comic books. So let's see some of the inside.
The inside? Okay. For the festival, I don't know if I classified it as the right genre, but
Well, if you're gonna change it, the time to do it is now, because we're gonna be in print mode pretty soon, and
I'll leave it as is. I'll leave it as is. Just it covers
Okay.
so much that I wasn't sure.
okay,
So you just say you want to see any inside?
just show us a little bit about how the
Okay.
inside looks. Some of the pages on there.
This is a flashback scene. So the flashback scenes I usually do in black and white, but
Okay. Now,
This
is that a thing with comic books, or is that just something you do?
it's
And
something
put
I do.
flashbacks in black and white.
I think everybody kind of does it a little differently, but
Okay.
somehow I do. But
Okay.
I'm trying to fit it in the screen.
No, we can see. We can't read the words, but we can see the pictures.
Okay, so this is when the black man is telling his story about how he came from like the Tulsa massacre, and like when and when he was afraid of like lynching and everything. And so he explains and he tells his story here and like kind of how he helped to overcome that. And he said like at the end, like, Jesus, he died for everyone, and that's kind of how he helped overcome it. And so I wanted to put Jesus on the cross down there at the bottom.
Okay, I see that.
And then that's when he tells his story. And the rest of it, it kind of goes from there. So basically he helps when the alligator, he's having trouble fighting the villain, in this scene, he's having trouble fighting the villain in that scene. And then the villain, he tells his story, and then the black guy, he shows up and kind of helps the alligator rescue him and defeat the final villain. And that's when that's when he accepts humans a little bit more. So
how long is your comic? Is it more of a graphic novel than it is a comic, or would you categorize it more as a comic than a graphic novel?
It's 56 pages. So sometimes I call it a graphic novel because I Googled and they said, I think they said technically a graphic novel was at least 48 pages or something. I can't remember the exact number. I think it was 48 or 40, somewhere in there. So
well, it'll depend on who you're talking to. If you're talking to adults, it'll be a graphic novel.
Yeah. So sometimes I call it a graphic novel because it's 56 pages. And so.
And is that going to be about the going length for all of your different series?
I think so. I try to keep them all around the same. So.
Okay, so we have to get you out to Comic-Con, so we can get your book out there so people can see it.
Yeah, I've been hearing about Comic-Con. Is that in New York?
I think it
there's
travels.
New York.
They have a few different ones. I was at one. I wasn't like an author at it, but I went to one a couple of weeks ago where I met a few people. So.
Oh, okay. Where was that one?
That was here in Austin.
In Austin. Okay. Yeah, I hear about a lot of those different events related to books. They have con on the end of them now.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing.
Mary Evans wants to know, what illustration tool or software do you use?
I use Procreate, so I draw everything on the iPad with the stylus and everything. It's sitting over there, but yeah, I draw everything on the iPad with an app called Procreate. So,
how long have you been an artist? Or is this something that you grew up doing?
I used to draw all the time when I was a kid, so I guess you can say I've drawn all my life, I guess.
Okay. And then how do you make the transition from, I'm sure as a kid, you were just kind of drawing pencil to paper and so forth. And then eventually you moved over to computer graphics. So when did that process take place?
So I drew, actually, it wasn't that long ago. I was drawing like it on black and white. And but I realized like I'm not very great at coloring. So I figured it'd probably be easier if I wanted to color it to do it digitally. And so then I had to invest in an iPad and do it from there. So that was I bought the iPad, I guess it was two years ago, I guess. So fairly recent.
Okay, so technology actually enhanced your art.
I would say so, yeah.
So I always feel like I always wonder whether there are some purists who don't want to move to computers because they feel the magic is in their fingers and they just want to actually draw it on paper. So I always wondered about that process. Do some people feel that way?
I think so. I can kind of go either way, really. Just until it's when I draw in black and white, it's always like pencil to paper. It's always black and white. So if I wanted to color it, then I do digital. So.
So I'm wondering how, before we had digital, which I don't know when the people started doing their drawing digitally. I know it changed the way, I guess, does it change the quality? Does it change the speed? Both of those or other things? It's just easier to make corrections. Is that what it is with the digital?
Yeah, for me, it speeds it up a lot. So if I want to, like, say if I need to change dialogue, I can just put it on like a separate layer and then just change the text. So when I was doing it like the other way, I had to like erase it and kind of be careful. And then once I ink it, it's kind of there. So.
Oh, okay. So I guess it's like word processing software or whatever. Change the way the printed word is done.
Yeah.
Because back in the olden days, when you didn't have the desktop or laptop or PCs or anything, you had to correcting was very, very difficult for people. So it was like you had to really be accurate on the, very accurate. You didn't have a lot of room for margin for error at all. Right. So that's good that people are able to be more creative and they have more options.
And speaking of options, Lydia Brew, she wants to know if you will have an ebook. Will you be turning your book into an ebook?
I haven't really thought about it. Now that you mention it, it's an idea. So.
Are comic books in ebook form?
Yeah.
I don't know that market, so.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I'm quite sure that they are. I'm speaking totally as an outsider, but I'm thinking that
assuming they should be, I guess.
Yeah, then Karen Wallace Brown wants to know, actually, she said you have created a video game to accompany the comic book.
That's my mom.
But that's cool. Tell us about
the great. That's wonderful. Thanks, Mom, for supporting his work. And I know being a mom, you always support your kids when they're doing something creative. So that's great. So tell us about that. Tell us about the video game you made.
So the game, I guess, I don't know if you want me to show it, but the game.
Sure, show it. Show it to us so we can see it.
So there's a couple. I said I like watching superheroes as a kid, so I always wanted to see my characters move, and so the game actually came. I actually did the game before I actually released the comics, and so it's like if you play like the old Sonic games or Mario or Donkey Kong, like basically the character moves from side to side, or the character runs from one end of the level to the other in order to beat it. And I'm trying to get it to load up now, but and this is actually the second game because it's a little more put together. But basically, I just I always want to see my characters move, so I'm trying to let's see if I can.
Now, so all I can say is if you've created a video game, you can create an ebook.
Right. So let me let's see here.
So the video game is related to the story?
Yeah, so I or not this one per se, but the other one that I can't move it. I don't know if I can move it on a screen. If you can see
something's moving, somebody's running, something's running.
So I can't really play it on screen, but
okay.
Basically, if you're familiar with like platform games, the character, he just runs from one end of the level to the other, while beating up enemies, and then he moves on to the next level. So And then the music, my mom's actually a music teacher, or she retired a couple months ago, but when I compose the music for my games, she kind of helped me a little bit with that, making sure like it sounded right. So yeah,
Awesome.
she
That's great.
so.
That was a collaborative effort.
I love it. I love it.
Me too.
Mary Evans wants to know how we could access the game. Is it an app? Is it to where other people can download it?
Yeah, it's on the App Store and Google, or actually, yeah, they're on the App Store and Google Play. So
No, so what's the name of it? So people want to look it up and download the app.
so one of them is called 0 Hour Rescue.
Okay, so you're still dealing with the 0 hour.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the other one, that one is free. And then the other one is let me see, 0 Hour DOTD. That's what it's called. It's
Okay.
updated a little bit, but that's what you would. That one is $2.99.
Okay.
All right, you're doing your thing. That's amazing. So yeah, we've got to make sure that we're getting you out there. Remember, your homework is Comic-Con, connecting with some more comic book artists, especially ones of color. Oh, Mary Evans just found it in the Google Play Store.
Oh,
she
posted the link.
Put it into the link. She just put it into the chat.
Thanks.
So we all need to go ahead and download this game and play the game and support this young man, because you're doing some amazing things.
Thank you.
Yeah, keep doing it.
Creativity. Now, when is your book 2 plan coming out? Part 2, do you know?
I said January a while back, but I don't know.
Well, let's say next year. How's that? Next year.
Yeah, I don't know if that's
And you have a whole.
It'd be like August. So
Well, don't feel bad, because I've been trying to get my sequel out to my one novel for years, and I still haven't got it out. So I've had 6 other books that have come out, but not that one. But I'm not gonna release any more books till this one comes out, and it's coming out next year. So I'm determined. But sometimes you have a particular timetable in mind, and sometimes you make it and sometimes you don't. And some people who like write all the time, like we have some people on the show that have 50 books, 100 books and things like that, and they're releasing 2 and 3 books a year, and I don't know how they do it, but they have actual imaginations, and they're constantly writing. They're writing every day. I'm really I admire the craft. I admire their dedication to the craft, because not everybody can do that. It's really a select few that can write all the time like that. They really just come up with ideas and creativity all the time.
Well, we're getting close to the end of the interview, but if you can let us know how we can find your comic books so we can support you.
So there's 3 places. You can go to my website. I don't know how to put it.
Don't worry about it. I'll put it in the chat myself. You can
The
just tell us
Spider
what it
Cave
is.
Studios.
Yeah, you can order it from there,
Yeah.
and I'll ship it out to I'll ship it out myself.
Okay.
And then the others, it is on Amazon, but I kind of just put it out there just for the sake of having it there. And then the other places, so the printing company that I use, they have their bookstore as well. So I put it there since they're helping me like print it out and everything. So that's called the CWS bookstore. So, but yeah, my website, that's probably the easiest way to go.
Okay, so that's the spidercadestudios.com.
Right.
Okay, and you on social media on all of those same places, on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter? It's the Spidercade, Spider, and then CADE, and then Studios.
Right. So
on Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah, Instagram is the one I use the most. I don't. I have a Twitter. I don't really use it much. But Instagram is the one that I.
Yeah, I just followed you on Instagram, Spidercade Studios.
Okay. Oh, thank you.
Okay. Well, Edwin, thank you so much for being a guest on Black Authors Matter TV, and congratulations on your comic book and your future work that you're going to be releasing. And I know it's going to all just come out in succession, and you're going to be setting the world on fire, and your video games. That's exciting.
Thank you.
Okay.
Well,
Have a great
thanks very much for being on the show. Congratulations to all you're doing, and we hope to stay in touch with you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here.
All right. Have a good night.
You too.
Okay. Well, our next guest that we're having on is he is someone who is an expert at fame. So his name is Ramen Hervey. I think that's how I pronounce his last name. The
You said
second,
it totally different from the way I would have said it. So I hope
well,
you
I
were
think
right.
it's French.
I was gonna say Raymond Hervey, but you said Ramon Hervey. So I like the way you said it.
He'll tell us if we're both right or wrong or whatever. He'll tell us. He has a memoir out called The Fame Game, and he has been doing publicity for well-known people for decades, and he's letting the world in on how he did it, and just some of the ins and outs, and maybe some of the juicy stories behind the scenes that we can find out about.
Well, I like juicy stories.
So welcome to Black Authors Matter TV. Okay, we need you to unmute your mic so we can hear you. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes. Welcome to the show.
No, I can't hear you.
You can't hear us. That's yours. Maybe you need to turn up your volume, maybe. Can you hear us now? Okay, I guess we might need to talk so he can know that we're talking. So, and he can hear us. Can you hear us
Are you
now?
there?
Yes. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Yay,
Okay, good.
we
Great.
did it.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you for being a guest on the show, and congratulations on the release of your memoir.
It's not a memoir.
Well, that's what it says on here.
Well, I don't know who gave it to you, but it's not a memoir.
That's what the publisher said. So, okay, so what is
It's not my professional life. It's not a personal memoir. It's about my professional life and my career in the entertainment business. And the correct way to say my name is just Ramon Hervey II.
Okay, Ramon Hervey II. Okay.
That's straight.
Okay. I don't know, you never know. So, all right. Well, thank you for being a guest, and thank you for letting us in on some of the aspects of your career as an entertainment manager and a publicist.
Thank you so much.
So how did you get into the field? How did you get started with your career, which it says it spans 4 decades? So you
yes, I got in originally. I lived in London, England. And while I was over there, I started working for a talent agency by the name of Starlight Artist. And I worked as a publicity writer for a booking agency. And they had a small roster. They had a big artist. Their biggest artist was a pop group called the Bay City Rollers that were positioned to be the next Beatles. And they had a couple of Black artists, Mac and Katie Kassoon, Clem Curtis and the Foundations, a pop act named Marmalade. So I really started there. And then I ended up being an editor for a couple of music magazines. I helped launch a couple of music magazines in London. And then I moved back to Los Angeles, and I ended up getting in the music business at Motown Records in Los Angeles.
Oh, okay. Okay. So who, at the time when you went to Motown, who were some of their top, who were some of the top talent at the time?
Everyone famous. Every Motown act you can think of was there when I was there. Diana
Oh,
Ross, the Supremes, the Four Tops, the Temptations, Smokey Robinson, Stevie Wonder, the Commodores, Rick James, the Jackson Five.
So I see all of those gold records behind you. Is that where a lot of those came from?
Not from Motown, but after Motown. I was only at Motown for about a year. But I got to work on the biggest record that I think I worked on at Motown was Songs in the Key of Life by Stevie Wonder. And
yeah, that was the big one.
I have a great story about that. It was one of my first marketing meetings as a young publicist. I got hired by a publicist by the name of Bob Jones, who had worked at Motown for many years. And in the marketing meeting, Stevie was talking to all the executives, and he wanted to know, what are you guys going to do for my album? And he started saying a few things that he wanted. And he said, one of the things that I've always dreamed about having is I would like to have a billboard in Times Square. And he said, I'd like it to be so big and so bright that even I could see it. But he was that serious. He knew exactly what he wanted. And I remember how exciting it was for me to be in that. I was only in my 20s then. And to be in that meeting and to meet him in person and just to see his sense of humor, but also his business savvy. And I always have remembered, I've known Stevie for years now, and I've reminded him of that story several times, the first time I met him.
So you were at such a young age, I mean, in your 20s. Is publicity or marketing something that you kind of fell into, or did you study it and then move forward with it? How did this happen?
No, I totally fell into it, to be honest. I went to Europe because I was a flight attendant on Pan Am Airlines. I was one of the first Black men to fly on Pan Am Airlines because they were one of the first international airlines from the US, to fly international. But they didn't have any men, or they had very few Blacks. So I was one of the first Blacks and the first Black males to fly on Pan Am. That's why I ended up going over there. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And you just stayed?
I stayed for about I got laid off, and then I stayed, and then I ended up being in the music business. And I just fell into it over there. I didn't study. I went to school, I graduated from college, and I wanted to be a lawyer. And then I just switched up, and this job opportunity came up, and I really wanted to travel, so I took it. I got paid well, and we got to travel. I got to travel all over the world.
Wonderful. That's a great way to fall into a career that you wound up sticking with. So I'm guessing you must have found yourself very good at it, or you must have really enjoyed it, or both.
I always had an ability to write. When I was in high school and college, I was a sports editor of my school newspaper. In high school, I wrote poetry. So I did have some writing skills, and for publicists, I feel that's probably the most important asset that you can bring to the table, because you can write press releases, you can write pitch letters, put decks together and all those things. And you develop your contacts over a period of time. So that was my inroad, was my ability to write.
Yeah, I tell my daughter that all the time. If you're a great writer, it can just open so many doors. I said, a lot of the courses that I took in college, I passed them because I was a good writer. I mean, some of the stuff I had no idea about it, but because I was a good writer, I was able to pass my courses. So I tell people all the time, writing is just a very, very powerful tool to have.
It is, and it's important because I think, great ideas that you want to try to implement. To me, great ideas are not great ideas unless you can implement them. And if you can't explain them to people in writing, then it's very hard for them to come to life.
Right. That's why I say an idea is only as good as the execution.
Exactly.
And if you can't execute, it's going to die on the vine because it's just an idea. That's it.
That's right. I agree with that 100%.
without that ability. So you were, I mean, the list of people that you work with is very long, not just in the music business, but just in entertainment in general. And how did you end up switching back and forth from music to like working with actors and, you know, how were you able to?
I'd like to think that in some degree I got lucky. I worked at Rogers and, after working at Motown, I had worked with some pretty, Marvin Gaye was another artist that was there at the same time. So I got some exposure to quote unquote Black artists at Motown. And then when I went to the next company that I worked at was a very powerful PR company called Rogers and Cowan. They were one of the first independent press agencies in Hollywood for actors. And I mean, the studios used to control all the publicity, and all the agencies for actors didn't have the right to have publicists. They didn't have the right to have agents. They were employees of the studios. And so this company, Rogers and Cowan, that I joined, was the first to actually be able to sign, where people in the studio system, actors, could pay them to do their publicity outside of the realm of the studio. And I was the only Black executive at Rogers and Cowan at the time. And they had, most of the actors that I worked with, I met there. James Caan, Nick Nolte, Elliot Gould. I worked with a big range of talent there. And my first client that I worked on was Paul McCartney from the Beatles.
Oh.
And again, back to writing, the reason I got an opportunity, not a full-time job, to write on a project from Paul McCartney. He owned the publishing for Buddy Holly, a really famous rock and roll star who died in a plane crash in Lubbock,
Yeah,
Texas.
he wrote Pretty Woman. Isn't it the one that wrote Pretty Woman?
Yeah.
Okay.
He wrote a bunch of hits, and
yeah, but that's the one that's the only one I can call.
Okay. So Paul was sponsoring a Buddy Holly week to celebrate his music in the UK, and they needed someone to put together the press kit for it. And I had a meeting with one of the executives there about a possible job, but he said he didn't have anything, but sometimes we use writers, I'll call you, whatever. And I got this call, would you like to come in and work on a writing project? And then when I got there, I said, well, so what do you want me to do? And he said, we want you to write for Paul McCartney. And I went, what? Paul McCartney from the Beatles? You want me to write for him? So I was very excited. That was my first gig. I finished it. They really loved my work. Paul apparently really liked it. And so I got a full-time job from doing that one project.
Wow. That's a heck of a first job.
Yeah.
So what do you think you've talked about the writing skill or being a publicist and having a successful long-term career. What are some of the other important things that you think helped you maintain your career over these decades?
I think having an understanding of the business is really, really important. Being well-read, being aware of trends. I think being a sponge. I was really a sponge. I've been a student of the industry my whole life. So, I mean, from once I got into it, I wasn't before, but I really tried to watch what other people ahead of me were doing to see what things work and what things don't work. But I think when it comes down to my clients, it was to I think it's a job of every publicist and manager is to understand, get into the client's head and figure out what are their strengths. What are the things that they can showcase? What do they do best? So that you can try to illuminate and have those things focus and as a step instead of focusing on their weaknesses. Find out what they really want to accomplish and then, build a partnership with them. And I always looked at every relationship that I've had with all my clients as a partnership. Like, what can we do together and share our vision and show them how I can help them implement what they'd like to accomplish.
I'm so glad that you said that. I actually have a video on my Instagram about partnerships, that when you have a client, the client and publicist relationship should be a partnership, because the publicist has to understand the client's needs and what the client wants. And then the client has to understand the publicist and how they work as well. And when you work together and actually communicate with each other, you can get more done. And sometimes I feel like people don't understand it. They get a publicist and think that the publicist is going to make them famous the next day. They don't realize that it takes some work.
Yeah, well, one of the reasons the book I talk about, the fact is, I don't believe that fame is a destination, it's an accolade. So most
Yes.
people that I worked with, all the people that I worked with, famous people, they all had some level of success first before they had fame. And I think I have some tenets in the book where I talk about little, boiler plate things that I've always used. And one is don't obsess about fame, obsess about being the best that you can be. And if you do that and you work hard, you will end up having an opportunity to have fame. And then it really depends on your team and what do you do to manage that in order so that it can sustain. And I looked at it somewhat as a metaphor. 15 minutes is sort of the threshold where you can, if you get 15 minutes, then you can maximize it and you can lengthen it. If you only get a couple minutes, it doesn't really get you that far. If you get 10 minutes, you're probably a steady worker, but you're not getting the best deals. You're not getting the best offers. So when you get 15, when you're at the top, that's where the real players are. You're always in the game if you can stay in there. But it also, fame is mercurial and it doesn't last forever. So you have to be able to absorb the times when you're not as famous or you don't have success, because nobody, from Quincy Jones to Bette Midler to Richard Pryor to Muhammad Ali, all the people that I've worked with throughout my career, they all had bouts where they weren't successful, commercially successful.
Mhm. Yeah, a lot of people, fame is like their goal, and like instead of being really great at something, which will lead to fame. And then fame also can be a double-edged sword if not handled correctly.
That's correct. A lot of people are not suited for fame. They're not equipped. They don't have the psychological balance to deal with it, and that's why it can be addictive. It can be helpful. It just depends on how you use it. And I've seen a lot of people that weren't able to deal with it too.
Are these some of the points that you discuss in your book?
What I do is I think my book is a hybrid of 3 different stories. So part of it is, of course, my story and how I got into business and my struggles as a Black man in a business that's where there's a lot of systemic racism, especially during the time that I started. It hasn't changed that much, to be honest, but it was even worse before. So I'm talking about my own trajectory and what I learned, the lessons that I learned, and then I'm using real eyewitness accounts and kind of putting you in the driver's seat right with me, so you can see where I started with clients, what I did with them, what my challenges were, what my defeats were, and I give you a wide variety, a wide spectrum of the type of clients that I represented, just to show that there is no one path for fame. Every client that I managed or did publicity for all had a different path. And then the other part is just my philosophy on fame and how do you nurture it, how do you care for it, how do you protect it, what do you do when you lose it, how do you get it back? And so it's those 3 different levels of stories that I try to mesh together to tell to show what my career has been.
So would you say that a person who is trying to climb that ladder, so to speak, so they can be in this, I'll just say kind of where they're going to be out there, where they're going to be out in the public, where they want to be famous, this is the type of book that they might want to read so they can learn the ins and outs of that, the good, the bad, the
I think if they're looking to try to understand fame, this This is not a how-to book. There's just as much of what not to do as there is what to do. And I've used examples where you can see it work, and there, you can compare it to even people that are younger, than, like, say, for example, you can take a Rick James case. He was a very self-destructive, but a very, very talented guy. And there's younger versions of him out there right now that they could relate to. So they can see, the ups and downs of what fame, if you really don't know what you're dealing with, and depending on when you get there, what you do with it, those are the lessons that you can learn. But it isn't like, there is no prescription. Like, okay, you take some holistic pills, you do
Right.
hours of exercise, you eat on this diet, and in 1 month you're going to become famous. I don't offer anything because it's just, there's no way. There isn't only one path.
I just feel like in this day and age of social media, everybody wants to have some type of fame. They want to be this huge influencer with thousands of followers. And often people are doing things so that they can go viral or so they can hit. And so you started your career when there was no social media. You almost had to work a little harder for it. And now that how have you seen the game change, so to speak, with people trying to be famous through social media and trying to collect followers and so forth?
Well, I don't know that you can be, just having followers doesn't make you famous. And if you
Tell that to them.
I don't care about them. There's a lot of misunderstanding. You have corporations who are trying to convince you. I'm not against social media. I think social media has a place in our society today, which
Mhm.
and it has, but it's only 12 years old. It's like a teenager. It's
Or a tween, not even a teenager.
not even, it's 12 years old right now, 12 years old. The majority of all the social media platforms were from 2004 to 2006. That's when they all started. YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, all those. But they didn't really hit mass consumption until 2010. So they're really only 12 years old, compared to newspapers and radio that started in the 1800s. And then you have television that started in the early 30s, the first TVs, but they didn't become commercial until the 50s in people's homes and stuff. So you're putting a lot of vested time in this idea that for a platform, these platforms that they only been around for 12 years, you're going to invest your whole life in what they say you can do. And only 1% of the people on social media really reach those really top tier, over 1 million followers and above. And most of the most famous people on social media are people who are already famous, like Kevin Hart, or you name it. They're the ones who are getting the most mileage out of it, even though it does give people a voice. It gives them a chance to be an entrepreneur. And, but I don't think a lot of banks are loaning money based on followers. So
that's true. People want to be, it's like the goal now is to be an influencer.
And you can make money. I know people that make money as being an influencer. But again, it doesn't mean that you're going to reach. In fact, if you really look at the way it's treated, traditional newspapers and television, most of the people that are doing well in social media, they're not really known to the rest of the world because they're looked in as a pocket. Like, you have social media fame, you don't really have real fame. There's different ways in which they're discriminated against because it still doesn't really have that lasting value yet of being, but there's huge success stories. The best success story that I, in my research for the book, was this kid named Ryan. Him and his family, he does reviews on toys. And in the first year that they launched this toy review, he reviews all these toys from Mattel and all these big companies. And they made $22 million in ad revenues in one year. So there are those kind of stories, but those are very
those are aberrations.
Yes,
They're not your everyday story.
Like when you hear that, that's what makes people think, well, you know.
Right. Oh, I can do that too. I can do that too. And I agree with you. It's social media and fame generally is short-lived. It doesn't have the same longevity.
Well, we
It's
don't
almost like it can last a month, or then they're on to the next whoever viral video.
know for formats that are only 12 years old. I just don't think, you know, you can really know for sure. And also just famous people. Fame has been around for 180,000 years. It started back in the Archon Empire, and the ruler was the first famous person of that empire. So it's been around and different and for a long time. And even today, for just regular people, there's over 7 billion people, you know, in the world, and only 0.000086 are considered famous of the living over 7 billion people. So it doesn't matter how you look at it, whether you're famous on social media or any kind of fame, it's under 1% of the people in the world are famous by any standard, any, you know, platform that you want. So your chances are, you know, they're tough.
There you go. Well, we only have a few minutes left in the interview. It goes way too fast.
Do you have a copy of your book?
Yeah.
Do I have a copy of my book?
Yes, that you can show us.
Oh, yes, I can show you. They didn't send you a copy or anything?
Well, we got an advanced copy. We like the.
That's all I have too. I only have an advanced
You have
copy.
an arc, okay.
I'm actually waiting for my final copies.
Okay, hold
And
it up.
it's available everywhere.
Okay, so
Well,
that way people know what to look for when they
Book was
download
just
it.
released on the 16th of August.
Yes,
last
that's
week.
my first week anniversary.
Okay, well,
Wow.
congratulations. Is this your first book?
This is my first book.
Oh, okay. And so
I feel very fortunate. I'm glad to be on your show because there aren't a lot of Black authors out there. And you know, I think there's only of all the authors out there, Blacks account for somewhere between 5.8 and 6% of authors. Which means I think of last year, there was over 7,000 books came out and about 200 or so were by Black authors. So we're a really small minority.
Yes, and that's why we have to stick together and support each other.
right, and that's one reason we have this show, so people can know who they are. And we're close to the show is 2 years old, and we're approaching our 400th guest.
Oh, congratulations! That's good.
Yeah. So yeah, we've talked to authors, you know, famous, you know, up and coming, all of the above, and we've talked to a lot of other people in the industry too. So we have bookstores, book clubs, we have all kinds of people on the show. But we are so excited that you took your time out of your busy day to be on Black Authors Matter TV, and congratulations on your book. Have you gotten any early feedback on? I know it's only 1 week, but have you gotten any early feedback on sales or just reviews?
I'm a conservative kind of guy in the sense of getting overexcited. I'm kind of calm. That's another thing that I think has helped me in my career is not to be too. I'm never like I'm on crack, and I'm never like really depressed. That's a good balance when you're dealing with celebrities, is that they know that they can count on you to be calm. But I feel good about the response, I guess, in a manner of speaking. The feedback that I'm getting is good, that people understand. You know, it's one of the hardest things I've ever done. I have to say, it's much harder than I thought it was going to be to write.
Yeah, it's a little different than writing the copy that you were writing at the very beginning.
Right, and you're writing about other people when you're doing the publicist work. This one you had to be. It was more introspection. So
a lot of introspection. I got a little bit over myself and saying I this, I that. You know, some days it was really frustrating.
Well, congratulations on your book, and best wishes. I'm sure it's going to do very well. It sounds like a very interesting book that I may have to get myself.
Yes, please get a book. Read it.
Absolutely, absolutely. But thank you very much for being on the show. We did put your website into the chat so people
Okay,
will be able
great.
to find it.
Yeah, they can
And
go on the website and there's a link for them to purchase the book on there, and it's available
okay,
on, I have found that some people don't want to buy, Amazon's the biggest one, but it's available everywhere and you can get it on black bookstores and too. And a few of my friends have said, like, I'm not a fan of Amazon, so where's there a black store that I can get it at? So
Mhm.
it's everywhere you can, if you do your research.
Okay, yeah, we want to support our independent bookstores.
Yes. So you can get it
All
good.
right. Well, thank you. You have a great evening.
Thank you, ladies. I
And
appreciate
continued
it so much.
success.
Okay.
thank you.
Take
Bye-bye.
care.
Okay, so that was Raymond Hervey. Was I right? Did I do
Yes,
that say
yes.
right? Okay, and he had the book called The Fame Game. So now we have our final guest, and Christian Cook has a young adult fiction book that's let's see, it came out. Oh, I think it comes out soon. It's not even out yet.
It comes out September 6th.
It comes out September 6th. So she's doing some preliminary promotion for her book, getting people excited about its release and what she can get and what they'll get in terms of a great story. So welcome to Black Authors Matter TV, Christian Cook.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. How's everyone this evening?
Wonderful. Thank you for being here.
Thank
So
you for having me.
your book is a young adult fiction targeting high school and post-undergraduate years. And it's called Growing in the Gray. Growing
Yes.
in the Gray. So do you have a copy of your book with you?
Yes. So my novel's here. This is one of our editor reviews copies.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Like here.
I like
And
your cover with the script writing on the front.
thank you.
That's
That's one of my
different.
favorite parts too. And I also
Okay.
like the rain, and you kind of see the Chicago skyline there because that's where most of
Okay.
it is.
So
Okay.
what exactly does growing in the gray mean?
Yeah, I was gonna ask.
So growing in the gray pretty much means as you're growing, you are in a lot of in-between stages. Nothing is necessarily black and white. You're figuring out things as you go, whether that be with the type of choices that you want to make in your career. Who do you want to be who do you want to become? Are you in love or not for the first time? Like you're starting college, you're meeting all of these new people. Everything isn't concrete. It just seems very fluid. So that's where that came from, the title.
Okay, because I didn't know if it was about gray hair. And I was trying to figure out, are the gray hairs growing in? Are we trying to keep them from coming out?
Well, the book, well, when you described the title, it sounded like it's a nonfiction, but this is actually a fiction book.
Yes, it is loosely based off of my experiences because as of going into school in Chicago, being from Michigan, so that's like the character's background too. And at the time when I was writing the book, it was much easier for me to really write about what I know. And as a writer, that's kind of, I feel like how most people kind of start out. I wrote about what I knew, and it was very easy for me to authentically describe these scenes in those locations. So for that specific reason, it does have some tie-in to my life, but it itself, because it has so many fictional elements, it is a fiction novel.
So it's not a memoir, but it's a little bit of Christian in there.
It's a
But
little
people
bit
may
Christian.
not know exactly what. So you named your main character Kristen. So that's kind of close to your name a little bit.
It was at first when this book kind of came together on its own. I didn't know I was writing this book until I felt like I had a lot of stories. I journal on a regular basis. So while I was going through my journal after freshman year, I'm like, I think I have some type of story here. I wasn't sure about what it would be, but I'm like, let me just create an alias for myself. Because at first I'm like, I want to kind of talk about what I went through. And as I continued on my time at Columbia College Chicago and taking different writing classes, I'm like, I want to add a lot of fun elements that necessarily didn't happen to me, but will make the story richer. And that's where the name spin off. I'm like, okay, it's not necessarily about me. It was inspired about a character of myself in a sense. And that's kind of how the name sparked.
Okay. I like actually has a little alliteration to it, Krista Clark.
Now you have an
Mhm.
upper middle class character. I mean, she's from upper middle class family. Is that right?
Yes.
So, because you can make your character from any kind of situation. They can be from the projects. They can
Mhm.
be, from the hood, so to speak,
Mhm.
um, from a middle class neighborhood, just kind of standard. And you made yours upper middle class. So what are some of the elements of that you included in this story?
So specifically the character coming from an upper middle class background, that was easy for me to draw from because I'm from Oakland County, Michigan, which is a very suburban, relatively affluent area.
Okay.
And being from an area like that, it was easy for me to draw from experiences where I was able to go to nice schools and live in a safe neighborhood. So I couldn't talk like share an experience of growing up in the projects or hood because that's not my story
Mm,
specifically. But I have had moments when I was like growing up where we didn't necessarily have like everything, where sometimes we would kind of like move around because money wasn't flowing right because like my parents like were just very up and down. So as you can see in the book is there's an economic downfall there. It's like, okay, so yes, you are from this upper middle class area, but after things go south, this is kind of where the family is at now. And now where does the character go from there? When you
okay.
are becoming an adult, you do have some control about, okay, I'm not going to be under my parents' roof forever. What is it that I want to do to create the life that I want to live? And that's where you see the character questioning the entire time, like, okay, I want to move away from home. I want to go to a school in a new city. I want to recreate my life. But when I recreate it, I want to take the steps necessary not to be in the same exact situation as the one I left. I don't have that safety net of, oh, this is my home and this is my family, everything's great. Now they've downsized. Now the money isn't flowing like it used to be. I'm like, okay, what do I need to do to make sure that
Uh-oh,
Uh-oh.
we lost sound.
Can you hear us?
Because I think we lost sound on your end. Did you hit, because it's not muted, because your mic's not muted.
no, I can hear you guys now. I
Ah,
don't know.
Okay,
there
there
we
you
go.
are.
Okay, there you are. Okay.
Well, I'm actually glad that you decided to approach the story that way because um children who didn't grow up in the projects of the hood, they have stories to tell too. I mean, our stories don't always start in the hood or they don't always start in the projects. And I think it's good when more people who come from middle class, upper middle class families tell their stories as well. So people don't feel like there are kids out there who don't feel like they've had a certain experience because they didn't grow up a certain way. So I think more people like yourself should tell those stories.
Thank you. And I do feel like it's also a story where you don't have to live a life that you live based on how you started. Just because you were born into a certain family or a certain background doesn't mean that's how you have to finish.
Mhm.
And in this book scenario, you see her life change so much in a short amount of time where she's trying to collect all these experiences at one time. And that's a lot to take in at any age specifically, but when you're young and come kind of from a sheltered background, like, okay, so yes, I came from this, like, we don't have this money anymore. And now I'm in a new city, trying to meet new people, trying to build a career that she thinks she wants to be a curator for art galleries in the book. How do you get there when you don't know anyone in that scene? You come
Right.
from a family where your dad's a truck driver, and that's, he wants you to like be in the family business. Your mom doesn't work. You don't come from, and typically in these art scenes where people are high up, they come from way past upper middle class families. Like they have been in this world for a long
Yeah,
time.
it's old money.
Yes, exactly. And that is as far away from a Krista Clark story as possible. So she's trying to insert herself into a scene where she doesn't fit. So she no longer fits at home. She doesn't really know how to get herself to fit in Chicago. And she's just like, what am I even doing on this planet Earth? I'm like, that is her main question. Like, what is her purpose?
Right.
Well, I think a lot of us when we go to college, especially when we go away to college, um, we have to find out who we are away from our parents. When you're at home growing up, your parents have shaped you one
Exactly.
way, but when you get out and you get on your own in college, which you really are on your own, especially if you're away, because all the decisions, you don't have that covering of your
No.
parents anymore. The decisions that you make, you have to live with the consequences of them, and you have to find your way and figure things out. And it's not always easy, and you do some dumb stuff, and and hopefully you do some smart stuff. Hopefully it's some smart stuff
Exactly.
mixed in. But I don't know anybody that went to college that didn't do some dumb stuff. I mean, they doesn't admit you don't need the details, but everybody that I know says, in college, anything can happen. And that's true.
It's
Well,
the
I didn't
truth.
do anything dumb in college.
And
And if
I've
you can just get through the years and get your degree, like not unscathed, but just not so scathed that you got
Right.
marks on you, you're doing pretty good, because not everybody graduates. A lot of people start off and then fall by the wayside for whatever reason. It could be money, could be just you couldn't hack it, you couldn't handle being away and having to make those decisions, and not having the covering, you know um and not everybody's going to be your friend.
and
Not everybody's
that is
going to be
just the part I learned.
honorable or honest, and not everybody has the same values you have. That's when you learn that, when you go away. You think everybody's like you until you go away, then you find out.
Then that's another thing where when I started college at first, my first semester was the hardest semester of college because I had like a solid friend group in high school. I was feeling pretty confident, and then you go away to a new place where no one knows you. I don't have any family, and that switch from Michigan to Chicago at first was a very hard switch for me at first. I'm like, oh, I love the city, it's so pretty. I love having fun. I love being downtown. I love doing this. But it was so much about the city I did not know. I did not know how to take the train. I was getting lost all the time, going back to the dorm crying. I'm like, what did I get myself into? I should have just like I thought it was the biggest mistake of my life. And I begged my parents to go. And I'm like, okay, they've already spent their money. Now, what am I supposed to do after 6 weeks call? I'm like, hey, let's just change our minds. Let's figure it out. So there was kind of some shame that I had behind that. I'm like, okay, you begged to come here. You were supposed to go to Michigan State, or you were supposed to go to school in state, which no one in my family wanted me to go to Chicago at all. They were like, why would you leave here? You have a nice life. We've provided this for you. You have friends. Like everything is here. And there's great schools in Michigan. Like, so they were like, what is it? I'm like, I just felt like I needed to be at Columbia. And because it was an art school, I'm like, I can concentrate on my writing. I can get more connected with people within the industry, because those opportunities wouldn't have been the same there and to that capacity. So after a lot of begging and pleading, you get the yes from dad and the yes from mom, which I still couldn't believe happened. I was so shocked. Hey, yes. So when I got here and I was sad, I would lie and say, yeah, everything's good. Everything's great. Classes are interesting, which they were. That was one thing because I'm a studious person. I just love learning things. So that was something I concentrated on when my social calendar was non-existent. Then we had gyms in the building. I'm like, okay, I can get into working out, just doing something where it's like, okay, you have zero friends, just figure out how to make your own life. And I would just like go around on and try and get off at random stops, try different restaurants, just something to provide me with the reason like, okay, you moved away, start a new adventure. That's how I tried to look at it until I started meeting some people. At the time, they were my friends. So that I'm like, okay, I'm getting my groove here. I'm meeting some people. I'm talking to boys for the first time because I did not date in high school at all. And that within itself was like a whole new learning curve. I'm like, I don't have any game. I don't know how to flirt. I don't know how to
Yeah, yeah, it's a culture shock. Not just the whole thing of you being away, being out of the covering of your community and your parents, and you're thrust into another environment where you don't know. And where I went to school, I didn't know. The only reason I knew a few people was because they had this weekend, like when I was a senior in high school,
Mhm.
where I met a few people before I went to school that fall, and I knew a few. But then some of those people were invited to attend in the summer. I wasn't part of that group, so they all kind of had a clique, and I wasn't in the clique, So yeah, so you just have to find your way, and it takes a minute. And so that's the storyline that'll be helpful to high schoolers and people in college. They'll be able to relate to it.
And that's another thing that drove me to write this. I didn't have a guide on any of this. And just because you're good at school doesn't mean college is going to come necessarily easy. I
Amen to
remember
that.
Amen.
I remember everyone telling me your future's so bright, you're going to have so much fun, this is going to be great, you're going to learn so much, which is true. That did happen. I just wish along the lines of before going away from school, somebody like, it's going to be hard. Just someone to give me like a heads up, like this, just you got good grades in high school, great. But now you're going to have to be in charge of your life. Like there's no one going to be telling you to go to class because you can skip class. Everyone does it.
Yeah, the professors don't care if you know or not. It doesn't affect them. It's all on you.
Exactly.
Well, your book is coming out at a perfect time. September 6th, right at the beginning of the school year. Is that something that you planned?
That is something that my publishers actually suggested. I'm like, that makes so much sense. It's such great timing. That is like kind of like my favorite time of the year, that summer ending going into fall. And I would say this in a way is like a perfect freshman year survival guide, how to navigate these type of situations.
Right. So how are you getting it into your target audience hands, these kids who are just starting school? So I'm guessing this is more, I think you said it was more high school and transitioning to college, that age range.
Yeah, so it is like that ending of high school all the way up to like those first few years post grad, like a post undergraduate of college. Right now, we're doing a lot of interviews like this, which I'm very appreciative about. And
Okay.
I am soon planning to do some influencer activities, just almost, I'm calling it the Krista Clark kit. So you'll get a book, like an editor's copy here. Then you'll
Okay.
also get a Target gift card because in the book she works at Target. You'll get some little pink Moscatos because I used to like to drink pink Moscato a lot freshman year when I was studying and do my homework. So you'll get that little kit along with like a Chicago postcard about here's some spots you should try out if you ever come to Chicago because there's so many great places in the city that are outside like the downtown tourist areas, which a lot of people go to when they do come to travel here, which is great because I still have a lot of fun while I'm downtown.
Right.
Just some other places that you can stop at along the way.
Yeah, I've not been to Chicago, so I could use one of those postcards.
You have, you've been so many places. You mean there's somewhere I've
okay,
been
I take
that
that
you
back.
haven't?
I've been to Chicago, but I don't feel like I was really in Chicago because I had gone to a conference and I was just in the hotel.
Oh, it was one of those business trips when you really.
Right. So I didn't really get to see and experience the
Have
city.
fun and have fun.
Okay.
I've been having fun here for like 8 years. So
Okay.
I've after moving here for school, I did all like my postgraduate work here, and it's just been a city that became my second home over time. So I can
Okay.
actually send you one of the Krista Clark kits if you want. I can send you a copy with like all the PR packaging and everything. To Gwen, if you
Yeah,
want.
I have been to Chicago a few times.
Okay.
One of my good friends from college was a Chicago native. So I visited her in Chicago a couple of times. I think she still lives there. I haven't talked to her in many years, but I think she's still there because she loved Chicago. She used to just
It's
brag
an
about
easy
Chicago.
city to love. It happened right away. That's another reason why I only visited twice before I made the decision. I'm like, okay, this is definitely where I want to be. And we've only it was day trips. Like we would come in the day, maybe do a day or two in the hotel and then go away. And that's when I'm like, I can see it.
It's really beautiful, and you know, a lot of people don't. There's a beach in Chicago, right? Like downtown, we went to the beach, and of course, I've never been. Well, I went once in the winter, but the other times it was in the summer. But one thing about Chicago, there's some memorable things. You know, the downtown area is very nice. Very, very nice restaurants. The food was really, really
That's
good.
another thing. As I continue the series, Chicago personally is my favorite city to eat in.
Okay.
I've always said like I've kept my freshman 15 on me since I've never been as small as I was ever, like since I moved
Wonderful
here.
restaurant
I
and affordable. You know, not
That's
you know,
amazing. You can find
affordable.
good eats
Mhm.
and
I don't know if I don't think Chicago can be Houston on food.
I've
But
never been to
you know,
Houston, so I
yeah.
can't.
Well, if you come, Houston has our restaurants are fabulous, and the food they give you so much food,
That's
and
a
you can.
that's a down south thing. People give you all their
It could
food.
be, but Houston's a big city too, so
Yeah.
you know, the food is great. It's every kind of food you can think of here, and the prices are very reasonable.
Yeah, but
That's
Chicago has that pizza though. And
They
those,
do have the Chicago
yeah.
style pizza. They
I don't know what
do.
type of food you guys like, but we have really good Mexican food.
You can't beat you're not gonna be able to beat Texas anywhere in
I don't
Texas on
know.
Mexican food.
I don't know
Not on
about that
Mexican
one.
food.
I don't know about that.
Well, San Diego has some amazing Mexican food.
Oh, I've been to San Diego, but did I eat?
I've only been to
I've been
LA.
there once. I've only been there once.
Yeah.
But you know, we're next to Mexico, so we have a lot of Mexican people here.
Yeah, so is San Diego.
Okay, yeah, that's true.
Huge
That's true.
Mexican, and like just Latino in general, but yeah, huge Mexican.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, are you going to continue Krista Clark's story? Are you planning to have? Okay.
Oh, I would
Okay.
like to be a series. Either I'm thinking, I don't know if I want it just to stop at her graduation, where we take you through the 4 years of college, or do we want to do like a capsule of another time period that I wish I kind of had a survival guide for, which is post grad is rough.
Yes.
Like the first year post grad was the most like it's the trenches. It's literally the trenches. Like you're trying to find a job. No one wants to give you like a real opportunity. Thankfully for me, I did have a full-time offer going out of school, but it was not my dream. I'm like, this is not the promise. This is not what I prayed for. Oh my God, why am I here? Let me get out of here. I hate this job. I am not getting paid what I think I'm worth. It was a ride. it was a ride for
I wonder
sure.
if I wonder if there's a study on the percentage of people whose first jobs out of college were really the job they really wanted. I mean, do I know anybody whose first job was right? That they really liked it. So, a lot of times you just take what the offer, you're glad to have an offer of a reasonable salary. If it's somewhat in your field, then
My first job was
what's the
out of
reward?
college was the Army, and I
Oh, okay.
retired.
My first job was selling insurance for Aetna. I don't even know if they're still around.
Edna, I'm glad I met you.
They still around, but and I was good at selling, but I hated it.
That's another thing. I was actually good at my job. I just did
Yeah.
not want to sit on the
I
phone.
didn't like it.
Because I worked at a PR tech company. That was my first job out of school.
That's a
Okay.
great job for first job out of school.
It was good on paper.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, there are some jobs like that are good on paper.
And I'm like, this sounds like something I can deal with for a little while.
Now, what was your undergraduate study in?
Public relations. So
Oh,
that's
okay. So yeah, so that was right up should have been right up your alley.
Management has a direct reflect, and that's another thing people need to understand. Your manager has a direct reaction on how you feel about your job every single day.
That's true.
I cannot be micromanaged. Leave me alone. Like, that's what I just wanted to say sometimes.
That is true.
I think the only thing I liked about that job first year out of school was the office parties were always fun.
Sometimes coworkers can be horrible.
I had an incident with a coworker my first job out of school. I feel like any job I've ever had is always some form of drama. But where he pretty much went behind my back to my manager saying she makes jokes all the time and yet they're funny. She's bringing the team morale down. I'm like, no, I'm not. You're just upset that you're not getting more attention than me. Because people always think like I'm trying to be funny. I'm like, I'm just telling the truth. Like, this place sucks, but I'm going to do my best. I'm going to do my best to make this.
You sound like a troublemaker, young lady.
One thing is because I was 21 at the time, now being 25. And when in a corporate structure, you just kind of have to learn how to say what you're trying to say without saying it that way. Because every time there was an issue at the job, I was the first one saying, you know what, this is completely wrong. We need to do like this, hold about this. And they were like, who is this 21-year-old girl talking about we need to change this at this company? Like, what does she know? If I could go back in time, I would just say, learn on your delivery. Just fix the way you're saying things so they can hear you and respect your opinion, instead of it sounding like you're just complaining all the time. So
yeah, that's something that when people get out of school and their first job, they have to learn to navigate that's part of the politics, office politics. That's hard. That's a hard part.
That's the hardest
part. That's one thing that pushed me rapidly into entrepreneurship at 25, and I haven't looked back because I couldn't stand the office politics. I just couldn't. It just was too much. I couldn't take it. But some people are better. They're more flexible. They're just more, easy to navigate things. I just wasn't that person. So show us your book again, because we're at the end of our time and growing.
And let us know where we can find the book.
So September 6th is going to be available on barnesandnoble.com, bookshop.com, and it's also going to be available on amazon.com. So,
awesome.
Okay. Well, congratulations on your releasing your first book. It sounds like a wonderful story. And it sounds like a storyline that's needed, a fictionalized one that can be entertaining but informative at the same time.
And that was another one of my goals. I'm like, whatever lessons you learn from this book you can take away, because I kind of sprinkled in a few, but everyone's their own person. So whatever they take, I hope that they can incorporate that into their lives some way. And overall, I guess I would say like the overarching message is it's very simple, but don't give up on yourself. You can take breaks
Yes.
Okay,
and return,
okay,
but
very good.
don't give up on your main mission.
And that is an awesome way to end the show. Thank you so much for being a part of Black Authors Matter TV. Congratulations on your book and best wishes to you.
Thank you, Rhonda. Thank you, Gwen.
Okay, have a great evening and continue. So for us, here's supporting you in agreement for a successful launch date when it comes out.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Have a great night.
You too.
Okay, so that is the end of our show for this week. We had a great lineup of guests and they all were informative and everything. I do want to show people again our book for our book club kickback, The X's, and that's September 13th. So we're signing off tonight. I'm Gwen Richardson, and we'll see you next week.
And I'm Dr. Rhonda Lawson. Have a wonderful week and a great evening.
Thank you for tuning in and join us next Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern for another edition of Black Authors Matter TV.